How are you, Thaddeus?
I'm good. How about you, Andrea?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
We've been talking for a bit, so we thought we'd actually like record this episode
Yeah.
once we kind of got a topic here.
I'm still thinking about the tree, but I'll try to get refocused.
I think we should bring that up at the end because that's a totally relevant thing. But yeah, what we've been chatting about and decided to share today was about creating relationships or dating or finding your tribe, finding your person, whatever that is. Kind of like in a midlife space when you've already kind of gone through a bunch of stuff and then you start over and you're like, what should I do now? How the heck do you date when you have all this experience?
Hmm.
So I think the first thing that we were going to talk about was when you start looking for a relationship in midlife, you have to know who you are and be kind of grounded into who you are so you can attract the right person. And I'll share a little thing. Someone shared this with me, and I'm not gonna say who it was, but I was having this great conversation and with his friend, and he asked me, I was single at the time, and he said, so if you're looking to attract the perfect partner, what is that partner like? Tell me all about that partner. So I, of course, started like listing off attributes and things and all these different things. And then he said, are you the kind of person that person is looking for? And I sat there for a second and I said, almost. Like I was really in a pretty good space at that time. And it helped me understand the value of that. Like we have this dream person, but we're not that person's partner yet. Like we have this idea of who we want to be with, but we're not there yet. So that gave me like I love that. It just gave me such a clear understanding of we attract who we are and we also attract where we are. And in this conscious conversation arena, not knowing who you are, you're going to keep attracting people that also don't know who they are so you can learn more. I'm going to pause there. So, have you had any experience with that or thoughts on that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I also feel as if though if you don't know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you attract people so that you can figure out who you don't want to be.
Absolutely. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
if you don't have boundaries, you're going to have people show you that you don't have boundaries in that same arena, like to show up and do things that you have to stand up and say no to. Like that's not okay for me. So yeah, personal identity, personal power, your confidence, all of those things get tested in relationship, and um, you can either grow and change and evolve, or you can fight and break up and keep doing it over and over,
with the same person with a
or
different
another version
face.
of them. Yes. So I think that is kind of an understood thing. Like we kind of know that. So we wanted to talk about like how like best practices for meeting and having successful relationships. And the first thing that was really present was common interest. And what do you like doing in your spare time? So showing up in those places to meet someone who's also in that place is going to give you a common ground. And like a spiritual setting or a church or a hobby or a sport or whatever it is, like all of those spaces give you a common ground to start with. So if like bowling, if you don't like bowling, don't go hang out at a bowling alley.
Yeah.
So if you do like bowling, go join a bowling league and you'll definitely find someone else who likes bowling as kind of a foundation. It's a great example.
Yeah. And for me, it's also if you like bowling and you go bowling, then you're going bowling. So it's almost a win-win. You
Yeah.
bowled and you found somebody, or you bowled and you bowled. So it's like sometimes we get caught up in the finding. Like I'll find this person, then I'll do what I want to do. And it's like do what you want to do, and then if you find a person, great. Because if you're spending all your time looking for someone and then you don't find them, now well, what did you just do?
Yeah, you went bowling by yourself and still had a good time, or you went to like a baseball game and didn't have a good time because you wouldn't do that normally. Yeah, so show up where you belong and where you feel good and where you're authentically expressing yourself. You know, if you like yoga and you go to a yoga class and you like it, look around, you know, that's a piece of it too, is we become really like this tunnel vision thing when we go do stuff. So we have to open back up to our world. And I think this is a cultural thing after being shut down for so long that people are trying to figure that out. Like, how do I reconnect to people? How do I show up? And like, can I actually approach someone in person now? Is that okay? You know, like there's still a piece where we're working on reconnecting. And I think people want it. People want to reconnect.
Yeah, yeah.
So showing up in a common interest place was really present for us, you know, just thinking about that. And even if you're not meeting someone that time, if you keep showing up, you're going to kind of see a pattern of people cycling through these environments. And then realize, like, you know, if you have a dating profile, like put the things you actually do, maybe not walking on the beach if you live in Arizona, but put things that you actually do. Like, what do you like to do? I like to play video games, go bowling, and you know, like people who do these general interests are kind of not showing really representing who they are. Like, I like
And
to
then
what was that?
and then they wonder why they can't attract someone because it's like,
Yeah,
oh yeah. Like I know women that are like, oh yeah, I love baseball and football. They'll put that in their profile, but never been to a game, don't even know anything. And then it's like a guy with season tickets, like, oh, I just found my dream girl. She
yeah,
loves football and baseball. I got season tickets to the Diamondbacks and the Cardinals. And then she goes to a game and she's like, well, can we do something else? And it's like, well, this guy thought he was getting the
totally.
girl that was into it, but you were just doing this stuff to because you wanted a man, but now you want the man to do something else, which is what we're kind of getting at, is like skip that fake part and just go straight to the real part.
Yeah, there's a bridge between the typical dating where you show up and you small talk and the evolved, I think I'll call this evolved dating. I think I like that. Like that, does that sound good? Because
Evolved.
the evolved dating is more vulnerable and it's more transparent, and you know, it's kind of almost like, let's not waste time with small talk. And you know, people say they want this, but it's not always easy. You have to do it and it's uncomfortable, and then it's less uncomfortable, and then it's easy. But when you start talking to someone in a small talk space, or you avoid conversations about, you know, like, oh, I don't want to talk about that, like that's a big red flag to me. Like, well, if you don't want to talk about that now or ever. So if someone's showing you that they're hiding pieces of themselves from the very beginning, and obviously we have a lot of issues with trust and wounding and things like that. So there are people who are not going to open up immediately um, to someone. And that speaks to the gut feeling of, do I feel safe with this person just from meeting them? You know, is this someone that I want to share my stuff with? And I tend to be the kind of person that people like to share stuff with me. They tend to just dump everything in front of me, and it's like an honor for me to receive that, because people do trust me and I don't take that and tell anybody else, you know. But that's a big gift when people can be transparent with you. So I think it has something to do with how you show up too. Like, is someone comfortable with you enough to talk about some pretty difficult stuff right away? Hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the challenge for me, it's always as you say, the evolved and the unevolved. Like if you're staying in that unevolved space, like it's almost like you have to have that vulnerability to take that leap of faith. And the truth is you're gonna get hit.
Yeah, it's a learning process.
Like you can't go to war and come back with all your soldiers. It's just a reality.
So it works.
if you come back with all your soldiers, you're a bully.
Ooh, like that. I think that kind of comes back to like if you're going into so we had this great conversation with Julie about relationship with yourself, relationship with your spiritual side, your greater power, and then relationship with someone else. So this is very relevant to what we were talking about with her is if you don't know yourself and you don't have that vulnerability and honesty about yourself, trying to have it with another person is next to impossible. So if you don't have those two first pieces in place, yourself and your spiritual higher power, whatever it is that you connect to, then trying to connect with another person is like it's going to keep kicking you back to go work on yourself.
Yeah.
You can't have this yet. Go work on yourself, or you're going to attract that relationship, which will be a learning experience for both of you, and either learn from it with someone, which is actually more difficult, or keep doing it again, like repeating it.
Yeah.
Say the same person, different face.
Yeah. And I like how you said it's more difficult with another person because it is, because when you're just by yourself, like all that stuff you don't want to think about, you don't have to think about.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in like a conscious relationship with someone, now they're bringing up that stuff that you don't want to talk about, not because they're necessarily consciously choosing, but it's more because that's the nature of a conscious relationship. Like we're bumping heads here, and that's where the growth is at, is meeting that, where when you're by yourself, it's like, you know what, I don't really want to look at that, then I'm the only one that's here. So yeah, we're not looking at it. We're gonna look at something else. And
Putting it
there's
off.
yeah, because there's plenty to look at, and it's, sometimes that's even the challenge too when you're in relationship with just yourself, is you start to lean on all the stuff that you're comfortable with rather than getting into that uncomfortableness. So even when you were talking about the deep conversations and, oh, I don't want to talk about that. Like, even if you don't talk about it with that person, it almost feels as if though it's like, okay, this is something that I need to look at with myself. What's the conversation that I didn't want to have with them that I can have with myself in a space of, I like to say meditation, where you're in a space where you can just listen to the thoughts, the voices, whatever's going on around that situation, and work through it so that now next time, oh, this is something that I can talk about.
Yeah, that's a huge growth piece when you can acknowledge, wow, that's bringing some stuff up for me. I need some time to think about that, and then I'll come talk to you about it. Like that I think is a valid, and I mean, that's a strong relationship skill to be able to say, like, I have way too much emotion around that topic right now. Can I come back to you with that? Let me go see what this is about, and whatever you need to do, whether it's a therapist or another friend or someone you already know. Like if you're in a new relationship, that just may not be a trust space to work through that stuff yet. It can be a lot. I think the biggest piece of meeting someone when I'm just going to say over 40, kind of the midlife space, is you already know who you are, what you like, how you live, you have preferences and patterns, and we don't like changing. Like humans do not like changing. And we're willing to, but like when we decide to, we have this ambitious thing. We're like, I'm going to change everything right now. And then we end up crashing and burning and not getting anywhere. So part of what I've learned and seen in my own path is if I want to change something that's this big, I have to break it down to like this piece first. What am I doing? And then complete that, and then like, okay, what's next? Because that's the only way that change is going to stick. And it especially, you can teach an old dog new tricks, although I don't want to be called old really ever. You can change at any point. It's never too late to start over. It's just a different process because your patterns are really deep when you're older. You know, the more experience you have and the more things that you've been doing for a long time, it takes longer to change it. And when you try and partner with someone and then make a change, you have that mirror, you know, that bumping up against that person that will show you exactly how hard it is to change.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's more like we're attached to our shit.
Absolutely.
Like I just had an image of a house, and it's like you've got this person that hasn't cleaned their house in 40 years. Yeah, it's not too late to clean it, but it's gonna
Right.
take a lot of work. And
Yeah.
you're gonna find out there's a lot of shit in there. And you're like, oh yeah, I want this. What is it? I don't know, but
Oh my gosh.
grandma gave me that paper plate 20 years ago. It's the last paper plate that she gave me. I can't let it go. Like you're attached to your shit, buddy. And
Yeah,
then this,
one of my things that I do is feng shui and decluttering and flow, and you know, I've created a business about this that is about that. And when what I've done with people in that exact setting is they ask for help, and I realize this is all a huge emotional situation. It's manifesting in their home that they've got all this clutter and stuff. But when I pick up something and I'm like, here, and I hand it here, I'm gonna put it the camera. Look at these scissors, aren't these great?
they look nice. Yeah.
I have a serious emotional attachment to my murder scissors. Sorry, I call them that because they're very, very pointy. But like, if you asked me if you could have these, I'd be like, I mean, I have a story about those, and I really like knowing that they're right here. Not because I'm looking about predators or prowlers, but I just really like those scissors. But anyway, when I talk to people, what I would do is like literally hand them stuff and say, what is this? And then they'd have to look at it. So it's like that handing you your shit. Like, what is this? And they're like, my grandma gave me that. I'm like, okay, are you using it now? You know, I'd have to like crack the shell on the attachment, and then they'd be like, oh, it's just a paper plate. Like, yeah. And then I like throw it away. Like,
Yeah.
for our next thing. But it's huge. Our emotional attachments, our stories, our, you know, our memories, all of that energy we attach to physical stuff. This is a rabbit hole I could go down really far, by the way. But it is an outer manifestation of what we're doing on the inside and what our thoughts are doing and what our patterns are doing. So when you try and connect that, this is a really, you haven't cleaned your house in 40 years story, you try and connect with another person who's a neat freak, what's going to happen? You're either going to have the person who doesn't clean the house drive the person who is a neat freak crazy because they won't let them touch it, or the person who's a neat freak will be able to clear all of that stuff. So there's a compatible trauma. I just see what I did there. I just dropped
Yeah.
that
I
right
agree.
in. So
Thank you, Teal Swan.
I'm going to put a link to a Teal Swan video, whether you like Teal Swan or not. She's pretty intense. I adore her. I think she's amazing. She did a thing about finding compatible trauma in a relationship, and holy cow, it makes so much sense. And it's a great example. Like if you, it's not that you don't want to clean, it's that, or you can't, it's just you don't want to, and you find someone who loves cleaning, you're going to probably have a good match there if you let them clean for you and you don't hold on to your dirt. Metaphors are fun.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because when you talk about like the compatible, I also think about like two clean freaks where their traumas might not necessarily be together. Because like I'm looking at your bookshelf, and someone else might want everything tilted to the other way. Like you're both clean, but it's like this is the wrong way. It has to tilt to the right and then the left, not left, right, right, left. That's the correct way. And so now there's this cleaning battle. Who moved the books to the left again? They're supposed to be to the right. You're like, who moved the books to the right? It's supposed to be to the left, right, left, right, left. Ah, where?
Jeez.
Yeah.
Book about that. Yeah, that too. And that's the same. It's the same thing. Like, can you stop trying to control everything enough to share your life, your space, your world with someone else? In a relationship, you have to agree to disagree, or create space of I'm in charge of this, you're in charge of this, and that's how this is going to look, because I'm letting you decide that, and I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm doing this and you're not going to worry about it. But you've got to have that balance. And I think that there's a lot of couples who have the undercurrent of contention and frustration with what their partner is doing, but they never talk about it. They just get aggravated all the time and just like simmer under the surface and maybe blow up about it. But it's so challenging to share with a person at all, to be able to do it in an evolved way is like a whole nother level of like communication, understanding, giving up control, just boundaries and all that stuff comes into play. So from the first relationship, one of the things that's really present for me is when you walk into a room and you see the person you're meeting, what's your immediate gut reaction? Are you like, are you excited to see him, or are you like, like your body's response initially is really important to listen to. And there can be a tendency to be like, oh, it's fine. Oh, it's fine. This is fine. Oh, it's okay. And there's like a red flag, like, and you're like, that's okay, red flag. We're going to give this a chance. But if the red flag keeps like smashing you in the face and you're ignoring it, like you're obviously going on a journey to learn something. You maybe pay attention to how you feel and the red flags, and then you get to decide, like, do I want to go into a really big learning experience with this person who doesn't feel good at all? And of course, there's a trillion different ways to look at all this stuff, but I'm speaking from my own experience, of course, because that's really what I have. But when you do find someone that's got that compatibility, there's that like, oh, okay, this is good. And it's like, well, what about this? Like, okay, I can deal with that. What about this? Like everything is like on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being I can't deal with that all, and no, that's a no, and 10 is like, yes, that's totally fine. Everything they hand you is kind of a 5, it's fine, or it's no lower than a 5. Like you don't have any red flags, you don't have any huge hard boundaries. Like, no, like I don't date smokers. So if you're a smoker and we meet and you didn't tell me you were a smoker, then I'm like, this isn't going to work. I don't date smokers. That's it. That's the end. We can be friends and you can be a smoker, but we aren't dating. So I think the knowing who you are, what's okay, and being able to communicate that instead of just saying it's okay when it's not is really critical, especially midlife dating, when you've already been doing this for a while and you kind of have some experience. You have to find your voice and talk about what's really important for you. I'm going to pause again. Your turn.
Well, I think the other part that was coming up for me when you were talking about the numbers is sometimes the challenge is and especially younger, not so much probably midlife, but sometimes there's a yes that's so loud that it mutes or it drowns out the fact that there's a strong no or red flag in there. And for me, that's why I always go back to meditation and like the mindfulness, because it's like the more time you spend meditating and in that stillness, the more you get to become aware of that. Oh, this is underneath that tin. I'll just say like a woman can give a man a strong sexual yes, and then he's blinded. Let's take the smoker thing. She says she's not a smoker, but you smell cigarette smoke all over her, but her body smells so good. And this cigarette smoke actually kind of blends in well with her perfume and her essence. So I guess I can tolerate this, forgetting the fact that it's not so much the smell of cigarettes, but it's all the other connotation. Like the whole house is going to smell like cigarettes. Does she smoke inside or outside? We're in the middle of a conversation. She gets heated and now she's going outside to smoke. All these little disconnections that are really the reason why at midlife you figured out that I just don't want a smoker in my life.
Yeah.
But if you haven't taken that time to get to know yourself through mindfulness practices and all that kind of stuff, like it can get drowned out with all these strong yeses, even though there's this big no, big red flag. Because I'm not looking at the red flag, because it's like, ooh, it's almost like if you're addicted to donuts, it's a mousetrap. You don't, ooh, donut. Oh, I don't see the big sharp knife getting ready to come and chop off my head. I just want donut.
Yeah. I like donuts. I'll tell you that.
Donuts and cookies.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about this before we were recording, is the don't try to make it work. And you're right, when you have that, there's the pheromones and the chemistry and the visual attraction and all that. So when you are in proximity, you forget about yourself for a minute and you're in that connection, figuring out space. So yeah, going back to yourself and like, okay, what's really true here? Okay, she's super hot. Okay, I want to be with her in a very physical sense right now. Okay, so that's not true. Let's put that aside. What else is true? I said I wasn't going to date anyone with kids, and she has 6 of them. Okay, that's true. And she's a smoker, and I said I wouldn't date smokers. This is not a good match. Like, but you have to kind of like detach yourself.
Okay. But her youngest is 8, so maybe 10 years isn't that long.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, the alignment has to be real. It has to be there. You have to have some of the same interests. I mean, I married my best friend, but it took me 3 times to marry the person that's my best friend. And I don't regret any of my relationships because they've all gotten me here. But having a partner that is like your best friend that you do stuff with, but then also like you have other people and friends in your life, it's really kind of cool, when you have that depth of connection and interest and sharing, but then you can also give each other that freedom to be who you are and what, go do your thing that you need to do. If I want to go see a musical, Jeremy is not going with me. I promise you, he will not go. But I have a friend that's like, you like musicals? Yeah, let's go to musicals together. Like I like musicals. So he wants to go to a heavy metal concert. I'm like, we'll find someone to go with. I'm not coming.
Yeah.
And to like try and restrict your partner, especially like I said, midlife on, when they already know who they are and what they want. If he told me, well, you can't go to musicals anymore, why not? Well, I don't like them. Like, so you can't go without me. Why? Because something might happen. You might look at another person.
You might find a man that loves musicals.
Yeah, you're gonna leave me for a man who loves musicals. Like, no, it's not gonna happen. But it's definitely a maturity space when you're older, that like that insecurity and that jealousy and that worry about what your partner's doing becomes more like, well, they're a completely unique individual that deserves to have their life as much as I want to have my life. And when you can share it with someone and be completely connected when you're together, but then also just like let them go, be and do what they need to do, and be honest and have boundaries and communication around it, then it's like kind of ideal, kind of perfect. It's working for me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the honest and boundaries part go hand in hand too. And sometimes like one of Till Swan's things was talking about how like people are willing to accept scraps in a relationship. And I think the honesty and boundaries really hits on that, like being honest about where your boundaries are at or what it is that you want, and realizing the boundaries between what you want and what they're willing to do, as well as like the openness, like your boundaries is you want musicals, and Jeremy's boundary is like fuck no. And like like getting caught in the possessiveness of, well, my boundary also is you can't exist without me. And it's like, oh well, if we have an honest conversation, I realize that we can't exist because you can't allow me to exist at all. Right. So this relationship can't work. but a lot of times people are willing to like, oh well, he doesn't like musicals, so I'm just gonna cut out this part of my life. And
Yeah, I'm
it's
just
like,
letting it go. Like, okay.
yeah, I'll just watch the Sound of Music on ABC silently in the back room.
Watch the musical on mute.
Oh yes, I remember this part. I can see the captions.
Yes. If I could sing along, I would, but I might offend them. I won't do it. Yeah, it's the compromise is part of a relationship, but not to the level of giving up who you are. Like you do have to relinquish control sometimes. Maybe I'm going to move my books a little bit. You know, it's funny is this is specifically because in this space and we're on video, like I wanted my background to work and it works. And I have like all my favorite books are on this shelf. And I have a shelf over here that looks like a crazy town tornado with all my stuff and my kids and stuff that I like. It's just crazy. But I wouldn't put that back there because it's not on camera, you know, because that's how people do things. But it is like how do you like things? What's okay? Do you leave your clothes on the floor? If I leave my clothes on the floor, you're gonna freak out at me. Like there's just so many little life things that we've become used to by the time we're in our 40s. It's like, well, that's just how I do it. And if you don't like it, you're gonna have to deal with your feelings about it because that's how I do it. That's just what it is. And there's something to be said for, okay, I can soften on how the dishes go into the dishwasher, in which spaces in the racks. Like I don't have to be crazy town about that, but I would like them actually to go into the dishwasher. Can we just maybe go there? Like as long as they're in there and they're not stuck together, I'm good. This is my own personal story from my mom and the way I grew up with like the dishwasher had the bowls go here and the big plates go here and the forks go here. And it was like very, if you had a fork out of place, you'd hear it from the other end of the house. You know, mom would be losing her shit. Like, like my life's about to end. So I grew up with that kind of control pattern that I had to break for myself. And I carried it into my early relationships because that's all I knew. And then when I went and visited my mom after I'd like softened, I'm like, I don't care as long as it's in the dishwasher. I don't, whatever. When I went and visited her, I had something to eat and she was in the living room and I was in the kitchen and I had this bowl in my hand. So I haven't lived with her now for like 10, 15 years. Like it's a long time. So I've got this bowl and I opened the dishwasher and I had this panic set in. Where does the bowl go? The dishwasher is empty. Like there's
Ooh.
nothing in it. And I've got a bowl and I'm like, holy crap, that's still there. I'm like, Mom. She's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm panicking right now in your kitchen because I don't know where this bowl goes and I don't want to piss you off. And she starts laughing. And I'm like, no, come here, seriously. I have to talk about this. But I could never have identified that. I'm like, Mom, I have a trauma about where things go in the dishwasher because of you. And I grew up with that. And I don't do that in my house. So where do you want this bowl? She's like, oh, it just goes right there. So she was still doing it.
Yeah.
In her own mind, in her own dishwasher, that was still in place. And if I had put it in the wrong place, that rule would have still been there. So, you know, when you share space with someone, all those little stupid things aren't little stupid things. They really stick in your psyche. They can. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine it's the same with like someone who holds a steadfast rule on being on time, and the person that's like, I'll get there when I get there.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a big one for me.
yeah, we gotta be. It's a big one for Katie too. Like if we've got to be somewhere at 5, she's like, 4:45, 4:50, we should already be there.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, you know, if I got something to do, I'll
I'll
get
be
there.
there eventually.
Yeah, 5:15. It's not like the restaurant's going anywhere. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can tell you're on time. I can see the anxiety relief of like, oh,
Oh my God,
5:15. But
it's
it's funny too, because
that's
with
such a
Katie,
relationship one. Yeah. So you have like a 15-minute window,
mm,
kind of, is that what you're saying? Like you have kind of like a 15-minute window and it's fine, a little bit, little
well,
buffer.
it depends. Yeah, it depends on what it is. Like if it's like a dinner meeting or something. Well, so if yeah, I don't know. It's dependent on things. But for me, it's interesting because it's not so much the time. It's like when when she's getting agitated about the time, it turns me on. So then I just keep egging her on because like the more agitated she's like, we've only got 4 minutes. I'm like, I can do it in three. And then she's like, this 3 minutes is up. And I'm like, I'm not up. I'm not up yet. We still got time.
Oh,
So for me it's interesting in that, but she's genuinely agitated. And then she's for the whole car ride, she's like, we're not gonna be there on time. And I'm just like, well, it was fun.
does she know how much you enjoy her agitation?
Yes, she does, because she
Like,
even brings that up. I can't even, she tries not to act agitated because she knows that the agitation is going to be triggering for me,
that's
which is
awesome.
only more triggering. Like the resistance of her agitation. I'm like, I think I smell agitation. You're trying to hide the agitation.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think for me the punctuality thing is just a respect thing. And obviously life happens. So if there's communication or like if I'm meeting someone somewhere and they're there within 15 minutes, that's fine. Like I'm not gonna like lose my shit. If you're running late, send a text if if it makes sense. And just let me know what's going on. But when like people habitually just show up 45-hour late and you're just waiting, to me that is one of the most disrespectful, like it's a control tactic to me. Like I'm going to control your time by not being on time. And it's
Yeah.
it's something that's always, well, I was raised with very much like be on time. Like your friend's mom is picking you up to take you somewhere, be watching for them. Like that's respect to me. It's a respect and a communication. But and it does depend. Like if you're going to meet up at a thing and there's flexibility, or if you're meeting up to have a meeting and you have to wait for everybody, like there's different dynamics.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like most of the stuff, it's like an event, like a concert or something that we're going to, where it starts at 6, and
Yeah.
where it's like 6 to 8:30. I'm like, we don't have to be there at 6. Just because they put RSVP be there by 6, it's like, well, the doors aren't shutting till 7:15, so we're good. We're good.
Yeah, there's a rigidity in relationships that, and I love that you guys have that like understanding and banter about it, where it's like almost funny, where she's like, I'm annoyed, but I can't be annoyed because if I'm annoyed, you like it, and that's not okay. But it's now like it's almost like softens the whole annoyed thing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same with when I forget to take the garbage out too.
mm,
It's like, oh, I forgot to take the garbage out, huh? You're
yeah,
gonna make me take the garbage out today?
yeah. But I mean, if you're in a relationship where you have those understandings, then you can kind of kid with each other and be playful with each other, and realize like we're all human. We're all going to do stuff like that. We're all going to annoy each other. We're going to get on each other's nerves at some point. I think the biggest thing there is just realizing like it's fine. We're kind of being goofy right now, but underneath that, if there's a thing that we're both not talking about, but we're just picking at each other all the time, like we really need
Mm.
to talk about that thing. And Jeremy and I had that happen recently with we're building our new website and our new business, and we're both working on it, and we have a lot of similar skill sets. So there's this little overlap place where we both can do this stuff, and he'll work on it and I'll work on it and he'll work on it. And it's just like creates this friction because we don't want to step on each other's toes, but we want to get it done. So we actually sat down together and worked on it together. And it was such a learning experience and communication. Um, both of us doing creative design, both of us showing up as this is who we are and what our brand is and what we're offering. It's all this we thing. And that was tough. And it was also amazing. And we got so much done. And so many pieces fell into place once we like settled into like, this is our overlap space where we have to sit down together and do this together. Because if I work on it and then he works on it, it keeps like getting crunchy. But I don't
Good
think
stuff.
that's common to be able to like really work on that level together with your partner. Like, I don't know. I feel like what we're doing is weird. I don't I don't know how many coaches, couple coaches are out there that can actually do this without killing each other, because we've yeah, we've had quite a journey with it, but it's really been powerful in our communication and understanding that we both do have really cool skill sets, and when they overlap we can amplify them instead of like, well you do that or I'll do that, or no, I don't want you to do that because I want to do that. I'm like, well, I want to do that. And then we collide, where if we like, well, how would you do this, and I'll ask him like, what do you want, and then he'll tell me and I'm like, okay, yes, but can we not have that piece be in all caps? Like, the all caps thing everywhere makes me feel like it's yelling. So okay, yeah, let's make that in all caps and that, so then we have these immediate negotiations and immediate decisions, and then it's done. And it's really kind of cool. So it's our business is an exercise and an example of our relationship, how we communicate, how we work together, what comes up, how we deal with it. And it's pretty cool. Yeah. I feel like I just hit a wall with all this. It's so like, it's such a big topic, and what we've realized with building this is so many people in their midlife space are um, really not sure who they are and what they want, and their relationship isn't satisfying, and their job isn't satisfying, and there's a lot of frustration in this age group and life stage. So, we're working on this. It's almost launched and almost ready and live, but it really settled in that this is exactly what we did. We met in midlife. We started our life over. We changed everything about everything, integrated two families, created a life together, started a business together. Like, we did everything that you can think about in this midlife reboot that we've done for ourselves. So that's what we're going to be sharing.
Nice.
Should be fun. So I think, is there any, did we kind of have some notes here? I was kind of keeping track of here. I definitely will put the links to the Teal Swan stuff, because those, you said the scraps thing. I'm going to look that one up, or if you can send that one to me.
All right. Yeah. She was talking about how we accept scraps because we've lacked like that love or that relationship piece where it's like, well, this is just enough. Like, I'm hungry, so I'll accept these scraps that they're throwing out of the bakery because
Okay.
it's giving me just enough. But yeah, I've got it saved, I'm pretty sure, because I was like,
Yeah.
this is so powerful in so many different ways. Like,
Yeah.
we accept scraps in jobs, relationships, everything. Like when we're thirsty, it goes back to like what Julie was talking about. I don't know if she was talked about it last week, but I know she'd be okay with sharing it, about the fact that, especially as a woman and even as a man, like knowing your how to pleasure yourself and please yourself raises the bar to what you're willing to accept.
Right.
And it's interesting for me to notice how many, or to discover how many women don't please themselves, and then they're getting in these relationships and it's like, well, he's your only source of sexual pleasure, you don't even know how to please yourself.
Right.
So it's like you're dependent on this other person, and if all he's giving you is scraps because he's like, well, I'm gonna pump for 50 seconds and then roll
Yeah.
over, that's your sexual experience. Where when you're empowered enough to be like self-pleasure, we're like, no, this isn't working for me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And that's the piece of self-care that a lot of women have, this piece of, I need to take care of everybody but myself. So
mhm,
even if they get in a relationship, they're still trying to take care of the other person and neglecting themselves. And whatever their partner is capable of doing, they're not even able to receive it. Like, you can
mm,
have a fantastic lover as a partner, but you can't even receive it because know what that feels like. Like you don't know how to either self pleasure or allow pleasure. Like I think there's a double piece there, because even if you're with a partner, sometimes a partner has no idea what to do for you unless you know what you like and you can tell them. And that's huge. Like everybody's different. And if when you're with a different partner, they're going to want different things. We're all different physiologically. And if you don't know what you like, but you want your partner to give it to you, but you can't tell them what it is, then you end up in this cycle of discontent. And yeah, like the sexual connection is just like physical and lacking, and you don't have that depth. Like to me, if you can't laugh hysterically when you're having sex, you're probably doing something wrong. And I think that that's a piece that most people are like, oh, it's very serious, right? You're supposed to do it this way, and there's a thing. And like, it's really just another exploration. And if it's not fun, then maybe figure out how to make it more fun. But it's a big piece of relationships, and surrender. That's obviously a huge vulnerability piece too. And yeah, women who don't allow pleasure into their lives and don't know what they like and know what feels good to them, typically will have a harder time connecting with a partner, or being disappointed that he's not doing what she wants, but she doesn't tell him. So there's this cycle of discontent. It's like,
Yeah, you keep going to KFC upset that they're giving you chicken. Like, I want beef. Why won't you give me what I want?
why is this not a roast beef sandwich?
But you don't even know it's a roast beef sandwich. You're like, I why do I keep getting this? This isn't what I want. I wish they knew what I wanted. And they're like, well, we've got chicken wings, chicken legs.
I ordered a 3-piece. I wanted 2 pieces of breaded cauliflower. And I don't even know if their menu says chicken on it at this point.
Yeah, either do I.
That's another conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the conclusion of this is that we all are unique, and we have to learn ourselves. We have to know ourselves and evolve individually if we're going to connect with people on any level. And I mean, friendships and socially and relationships and dating, it's all that, like if I showed up here to talk to you and I was just like, well, let's see, I'm going to pick out 5 things I don't like about Thaddeus and focus on that. Like, how would that be any fun? I can't, like I like to show up and see, like, what do we have in common? Are we doing a thing together? I love doing this with you. This is totally fun. I love when we have people and we talk about random stuff. And I think that that's a thing that people miss. Like, are you having fun with what and who you're doing? Like, who are you hanging out with? Are you enjoying it? And it's really that. So if your friends suck, get new friends.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's also like the vulnerability aspect.
Yeah.
Like talking about stuff that matters to you as opposed to like all the safe stuff. Like, oh, let's talk about sports, politics, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Boring.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that stuff.
The vulnerability in conversations, and I think that these conversations we're having, we put them out there, the right people find them, and there's a piece of listening to, the podcast dynamic with listening to somebody else talk about things. It's like eavesdropping on a conversation. Like, you don't have to know the people, but if you like what they're talking about, you feel like you know the people, and you start to, kind of connect to them. And just talking about this stuff that people don't talk about and putting it out there, I feel is really a good idea. And I think that's what is needed now, is more real conversations and more discussions about things that do have like thousands of ways you can look at it. I mean, obviously, the topic of relationships is so enormous, and everybody has their idea of how to do it. And I could listen to a dozen different relationship coaches and they'd all tell me a dozen different things. So the more information that's out there, it's the easier it is for us to find the one that resonates and that makes sense for us. So that evolved relationship is still a kind of a small percentage of the population. And if you're, there's actually a dating site called Conscious Singles, which has people that are a little more consciousness mindset to begin with. So like that's, get in the space with the people that align and narrow it down from the beginning. Show up in places that make sense. But I think that doing this is an absolute joy. So let's keep doing it and sharing the laughter and the cookies and donuts. What's your favorite kind of donut?
I like sprinkled donuts, and then I also like the maple. What are those called? The maples.
Maple bars.
Yeah, the maple bars. Yeah.
Sprinkled chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry, or maple, or
yeah. I mean, if there's a donut box and I'm in the mood for donuts,
the one with sprinkles.
Yeah. There's very few NPCs in the donut box.
I hate sprinkles with a passion.
Oh yeah,
I do. I hate them. So you can have them all. We will never.
All right, I'll take the sprinkles. I like the sprinkles.
I like the Boston cream donuts with the custard filling.
Oh my goodness, those are the ones I don't like. I don't like anything with the cream in them, like the jelly or any of that. I'm like, oh, good.
Thaddeus and I have just discovered that we are donut compatible. We could go out for donuts and we will never fight over donuts.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. If there's a dozen donuts and there's 4 of those in there, like it's like the 3rd or 4th day. Like, I guess I want a donut. I guess I'll have this, but only because it's left.
You just got.
Do I have time to go to the store and get a new box?
Just call me and like, there are abandoned Boston creams in my studio right now. Do you want to rescue them? I'm holding the phone like it's 1985. You like that? Wait, there we go. Okay. Yeah. So just call me. Wait, text me. I got Boston creams that are homeless, getting a little dried out. Do you want me to ship them to you? But that's a perfect example of what we just did. Like, seriously. I thought everybody loved Boston creams and I'd have to fight with them to get my Boston cream donuts, but like we can totally have donuts together and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But that's like a bigger picture, guys. Like that is what I'm talking about. Find someone who you have compatibility with. You don't want someone who's just like you because you'll probably kill yourself. Like you don't need a copy of yourself. Compatibility is good.
All right. Also communication too, because otherwise I'd be like, I brought donuts and you're like, where's the Boston cream? I'm like, oh, what?
Did you not get Boston cream? I hate Boston
cream. That's not a donut. I specifically told him to take that out.
I'm putting a donut picture on this week's ending slide. All right, I'm out. I'm going to turn this thing off. See you guys later.
Bye.